Welcome to Attic Continues, episode 293. Three, echo. Attic Continues, episode 293, coming at you right now. Why do my things say 292 on it? Are we on 290? Yeah, we're on 293. Definitely 293. Yes. I just didn't update my notes. 293. This is a weekly podcast. What's up every Monday on atticcontinues.com as an MP3, and it goes up before that youtube.com/atticcontinues as a video where you see me sporting Coca-Cola. And I'm your host, Stafa. And every week I have someone else with me talking about video games and related topics, and this week it is Kevin.
Hello. How's it going, Staffa?
All right. I felt a bit crowded a little earlier when I was trying to buy 3 Kevins, but
Yeah, I was trying to join into the Hangouts, and then Chrome's the tab that was open crashed. You know how Google Chrome says, "Oh, snap!" whenever a tab.
yeah.
So I joined again, and then it crashed again. So then I just completely quit out of Chrome, and then reopened the page, and it worked. So it showed me as joined in 3 times.
Yeah. But I can definitely handle 1 Kevin. 3 Kevins, I don't know. I think that might be an overdose of Kevinish.
Yeah.
All right. So this week's episode segments will include our main topic, which we'll be talking about the big release, the SNES Divinity Original Sin 2. We'll be talking about that. Kevin will be talking about that. He'll be telling me all about it.
Yep.
And then after that, we got some quick announcements, and then we have news topics to talk about. So before we get into that, I just want to say that all opinions expressed on the show are of our own and not of our employers, whether past, present, or future. Yes, hashtag don't fire Staffa. If there are any like stupid opinions that I express on the show or controversial opinions, just assume that my employer probably takes a stance of the complete opposite of what I'm saying. Or just don't assume anything at all about them. There we go. That's the safe route. Don't assume any stance for my employers, past, present, or future.
Yep.
So let's get started and talk about Divinity Original Sin. So what is the original sin? Is it eating the apple?
I guess so. I mean,
All right, we got it. Spoiler alert.
Sequel though, so the second original sin was, I don't know, I don't remember, but yeah, Divinity Original Sin. This game came out a little over 2 weeks ago. So the sequel to the first game, and I've put in about a little over 50 hours already.
So you say sequel to the first game? So is it a sequel to Divinity, or is it the sequel to Divinity Original Sin?
Divinity Original Sin and then Original Sin 2. So there's actually multiple games in the whole Divinity universe, but those I think were I haven't played much of the other ones, but Original Sin and Original Sin 2 have a different gameplay style. They're more akin to some of the older classic RPGs like Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights, and even more recently like Pillars of Eternity.
So let's walk through the timeline real quick. Where does it all start? It starts with Divinity, right?
Honestly, I'm not familiar with the timeline in the previous games before.
Well, like what the release timeline? Let's start with that. So there's a Divinity game, right?
I know there's like Divine Divinity, and then yeah. So there's I pulled up the thing. So there's a ton of games. There's Divine Divinity, Beyond Divinity, Divinity 2, And then
Divinity Dragon Commander.
yeah, Dragon Commander, and then there's the Original Sin and Original Sin 2 series. And I actually haven't really played any of the other Divinity games, but I kind of am like I've seen some gameplay of them. They're a little bit more like action RPG style, if I remember correctly. Um, but
So like Diablo-ish.
yeah, I think there's a couple that are like Diablo. There are some that are more like a little bit third person, I think. Um, like third person over the shoulder action RPG, kind of like the newer Dragon Age games.
Okay.
So they've kind of taken a few different forms of RPG, but Original Sin and Original Sin 2 are more classic RPG style. So if anyone is familiar with those classic RPGs, they are really heavily based on Dungeons and Dragons rules. And this one is kind of similar into that as well. It uses a gameplay style that's very similar to playing D&D in person.
So you're lawful good, right?
You can play any character style that you want.
No, I mean like you specifically. You're a lawful good. That's the type of person you come across to me.
I'm actually playing a somewhat chaotic neutral dwarfen warrior.
Oh, you're totally jumping into the whole role playing aspect now, right? You're
Yeah,
like, okay, I'm gonna go completely opposite of what I am in real life.
yeah. So I'm actually not necessarily playing who I would be in this game. But so this the Original Sin and Original Sin 2 games, you have a party of 4 people. Uh, And the first game you could actually play with 2 people in like you can do cooperative multiplayer with one other person. So you would have your character and one companion that you would take over, and then your other person you're playing with would have their own character and one other companion. So you have a party of 4, but you can also completely forego getting companions and just do the 2 of you, or just get one companion, however you really want to play. The game is very difficult, so it's not really advisable to play the game with only 2 people in the party. You definitely want to have a full party of 4.
It's primarily a cooperative game then, right? It's not. So if you're saying you should have a party of 4, it's not a game you should be playing by yourself, correct?
Well, you can. So if you're the first game only had 2-player multiplayer, but you also play by yourself and take control over all 4 characters. So you would in the first game you would create 2 characters. You're playing by yourself, and then you'll eventually find in like the first main town and some other areas around there, you'll find people that you can take on as companions. So you can control all 4 characters if you're playing by yourself, and that's how I played the first game. Which actually I'm still kind of going through. It's a pretty long game, and I haven't actually finished that one yet. But with Original Sin 2, I'm actually playing with 2 other people. So all 3 of us have our own characters, and then one person is controlling another companion character.
Playing with Kevin and Jake.
Kevin and Cody.
So it's not Kevin and Kevin and Kevin and Kevin?
No. But the cool thing with Original Sin 2 is that you can play with 4 people, and so each person can have just control over one of their own characters. But the first game only had 2-player co-op. But the game is pretty nice. It's a very heavy D&D heavily inspired game in terms of how the combat and the role playing plays out. So when you're not in combat, everything is in real time. Party members can split up. If you're controlling one character, you can kind of go your own way, talk to characters, to AI around towns and other places. And then combat is all done in turns. So real time when you're not in combat, but turn-based when you're in combat. And the game definitely has a progression system that a lot of other RPGs don't necessarily use. Most other RPGs will have you kind of level up very fast, so you get new abilities and new things available to you fairly often. I mean, if you think of like playing some of the Elder Scrolls games, or even some of the other older CRPGs, you can level up a couple times per play session, at least. But in Divinity, the progression is way slower. Like we've put a total of 52-ish hours, and we're only like level 11. Um, and so I mean, like you're multiple hours before you get to the next level. So you really have to think about your progression and what skills and talents and abilities you want to spend your points on. The nice thing is that you can respec your characters after you get to a certain point in the game. So if you want to change something about your build, like you're realizing something isn't working, you can always respec. Um, so at least they did that. But
I always demand respect.
yeah, it's I mean it's in the game, so you'll get respect.
I'm hilarious.
Yeah. The first game, and to some extent this the second game, they really put a lot of effort into the storytelling. Every single character in the game can be spoken to, and almost all of them are voiced. I mean, a lot of them will probably use the same voice actor if they're like generic characters, but even there's enough variety that you're not hearing the same voice in with every time that you're talking to someone.
So it'd be like a voice actor going, "Hello, hero," and then the next person would be like the same voice actor, "Hello, hero."
It's kind of probably like that too, where they probably have one voice actor doing multiple voices, and then they have a variety of voice actors. So you have the amount of different voices and things is a lot, and I haven't really come across any situation where it feels like they're the same voice actor over and over again. And it's really cool because every single character has something to talk about, or you can trade with every single character in the game. Um, so it's there's a lot of like I was saying, D&D heavily inspired. So you're able to kind of go around and talk with anyone and learn. And like the way that you find quests is also really impressive because you can sometimes stumble upon quests. You can accidentally kill quest givers and find other ways to get those quests if you never knew that they were going to give you something to do.
So like Morrowind.
Yeah, it's very much like Morrowind in that case where
So no wonder why you like this game.
it has a lot of similarities to a lot of the older RPGs that I really enjoyed when I was growing up, and but this one takes it to a completely another level because now you're also playing with other people if you want to, and so you're kind of going on this really grand adventure with people, and the story is really good. The gameplay is excellent. And there are bugs, and it only came out like a little over 2 weeks ago, so it still needs a little bit of polish in terms of removing bugs, and there's just some minor things that could use some touch up. But other than that, I think it's a very well done game. It hits pretty much all the marks in being a satisfying RPG if that's the type of game that you like. And they incorporate some really cool technical aspects too. Like in the second game, each of the four characters picks, like when you're creating your characters, you actually pick an instrument that your character kind of uses as a theme. So whenever you're in combat, one of the cool things is that there's like a bass line combat melody that plays. It's a bass beat, a bass like it's like a very like a basic typical combat music that you would think of when you're in a game like this. But then whenever one character ends up getting the kill hit on an enemy, that character's instrument will start being incorporated into the song. So it's really cool how the song has multiple layers. And so you can pick from like the four instruments are cello. There's a very traditional flute called a bansuri, I think, or something like that. There's
I think you made up that word.
I did not. I forgot what the other two instruments are actually called, but they're
a recorder.
I mean, it sounds almost like a recorder, but a little bit more traditional. It's more like a wooden recorder type of thing. Um, and there's one that sounds like oh, what's the like what a typical bard uses, a lute, I think it's called, and then or something like that. And then there's another instrument that's more string instrument type. But so like each character picks one of these instruments, and those instruments get layered on into the combat music as you progress through the combat scenario. And it's really cool because the song changes a little bit every time you're doing something.
Allow me to sing you a limerick.
Actually, there is a little bit of singing too in this game, but it's really cool because you're getting into combat and you've got this basic combat music, and then as you're killing enemies off, it adds more instruments to it. So it's really cool that they incorporated that because now it's actually really even more satisfying to kill an enemy because then you start hearing your instrument playing and everyone hears the same song. So it's just kind of like a little bit of recognition for what you've done to contribute to that battle. It's really nice. And yeah, dialogue is a huge aspect about the game too. Each character has different different abilities in regards to dialogue tests. So like, if you're trying to convince people of doing something or trying to get more information, the type of character that you build will have different tags. So like, for example, with my dwarf warrior, he's got a soldier background, so he's got the ability to use soldier type of like certain situations where he can actually use certain lines of dialogue to help in either convincing someone or forcing someone to do something, and that's all based on your background and your persuasion ability. So each character kind of has different dialogue options with each character, which each AI in the game. So dialogue is never the same too. Even if you're the same person talking to, if the group of people are talking to the same person, you will have different options. And all of the AI, all of the characters, the NPCs in the game will have different reactions to you based on your race, your character, your background, your actions in the game that you've done. So certain people might be better to talk to certain NPCs. So you're not always just the same person trying to get through every single situation. Sometimes you have to think about, would it be better for me to talk to this person, or would it be better for my other party member to talk to this person to try to get some specific result? Like, I'm trying to think. Yesterday, actually, there was a session where we're in a graveyard, and one of the characters that we have in our party is an undead. So he's like a skeleton, and he's has the ability to. So the different races in the game, there's dwarves, elves, humans. There's like a lizard type of person. You kind of think of the. Wow, I can't even think of the race in the Elder Scrolls now that are the reptiles.
The Alex Joneses.
I don't know why I can't think of this. This is anyway, so like they're lizard people basically, and then there's undead versions of each one of those. So the undead have the ability to, like, they can't be healed by normal things like healing potions and spells, but they can be healed by poison. They can be healed by just very undead type of auras and things. But they also get the ability to have different dialogue options. They also, one really cool ability is that they have a tool called the Face Ripper, and so they can take the face off of any dead NPC and put it on themselves, and then they'll be disguised as that person, or at least that race. So there's a little bit of morbid sense in that, but that can sometimes help in situations where you need to sneak around or get through a certain situation. But so this one situation last night where we were trying to talk to an undead person because he was trying to give us information, another undead NPC, but none of us could really talk to him because he wouldn't. The dialogue options that we had with him just weren't letting us pass, his tests or anything. But
You shall not pass.
But the undead lizard that we have in our party, he was able to speak, and he had the appropriate dialogue options to talk to that other undead because they kind of had similarities, and
They both died.
yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so like a lot of the situations are you have to think about them. There's a lot of planning, and combat also is not the easiest. I mean, even if you're fighting someone who's one level above you, it could be disastrous if you don't take the right steps and think about the battle tactically. But yeah, I mean, it's a really good. If you like fantasy RPGs, this one is definitely one to check out. It's you don't necessarily have to play the first game to play the second one, although I think there's a lot of lore connection, and there are references to things that have happened in the first game, but they're not directly connected because the second game takes place over 1,000 years after the first game.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there are certain events that they reference that, and there are certain things that happened in the first game that have had a lasting effect in the world that are kind of noticeable in the second game. And they deal with similar topics, but I haven't finished the first game yet, but since the second one had come out, we all started playing that one. But I'm playing them side by side pretty much, and it works out really well. I mean, there's a lot of polish in the second game over the first one. So all of your combat, for example, is based off of action points. And so everything that you do costs a certain number of action points. Some abilities that are more powerful obviously will take up more action points. Movement will take up more. In the second game, you have a maximum of 6 action points, unless you have something that gives you more. But you kind of have to plan out, your things. But in the first game, you had many more action points. I forgot. I think it was closer to like 15 or so action points, but things cost more and movement costed more action points. So there's a little bit of adjustment there, and they kind of cleaned it up a little bit, which I think in the end works better. But the overall systems are very similar. I mean, they will kind of hit the same marks in regards to how they play out. I mean, they're both turn-based combat, but real-time, everything else. They both put a lot of emphasis on story and dialogue, and planning out things, because your level is really a huge factor. Like as I mentioned before, you don't level up very often, but that means each level is more significant and has more benefits. But yeah, I think it's a fairly well thought out game, and there's no linear progression to it at all. I mean, there is in terms of like each quest line, but there's a lot of backtracking. So if you're not a fan of that, you may not like this. But one thing that definitely happens a lot in this game is you don't know necessarily which part of the world to go to next, because each area has monsters and situations of different levels. And it's not like a clear progression where you're starting in one point and then making your way outward. It's not like if you think about the Elder Scrolls games, it kind of gets harder as you get to certain, like, out from the starting area. And on top of that, all the enemies kind of level up with you. So you're kind of dealing with things that are relatively balanced based on your level, but they're going to get harder as you go outward. This it's not like that. Sometimes you'll have to kind of travel to an area, and then you'll get into combat with something that's 3 or 4 levels higher than you, and then you'll have to either flee or die and reload, and then realize, nope, I'm not ready for that area yet. And sometimes you'll have quests that will say that the next thing is to go there, but you're just not leveled up enough to get through those areas. So you have to backtrack a little bit. You have to do a lot of exploring to find the quest resolutions. So I mean, there's a lot of planning and thinking that goes on, and it's not something that you just want to breeze through because there is a lot of strategic gameplay to it. But for those who enjoy those types of RPGs, it's definitely something I recommend playing.
All right. Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yeah, super fun game.
Okay. I don't really I mean, you pretty much went through that in detail. I don't really have any questions about it. I mean, sounds like uh has a lot to it.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, I suppose we can move on to something else that's really deep that you can also play with like three friends, kind of.
Is it on the
Kind of.
deep web?
What's that?
Is it part of the deep web?
Oh, it's on the deep web, shallow web, all parts of the web. And it's you want do you know what it is? You have any idea?
I have, I was dreaming about something like this last night.
Dreaming of something that would host your dreams?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, it's DreamHost.
Ooh,
DreamHost is a web service that offers unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, user-friendly interface. They're also optimized to use content managers such as WordPress and many more features. All that just for $7.95 US a month. And if you use the promo code out of continues, that's one word, no spaces. Oh, waive away the setup fee, get your free domain registration.
very nice.
Wow.
Everyone needs that.
Yeah. And one thing that we need, or we can definitely, we'd appreciate of getting is if we could get more iTunes reviews because we don't have very many. If you use iTunes, we'd really appreciate that you leave an iTunes review. It's one of the single most helpful things you could do for the podcast is to leave a review. And if you can't leave a review for whatever reason, you can still help us out by sharing the podcast with friends or family on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, wherever you want. Tell a friend. Anyways, let's move on and let's talk about some news. Some big news. SNES Classic just came out. I got one.
Very nice. What have you put
Yeah.
on it?
I was playing some Danky Kang.
Very nice.
Yeah, so like the thing that is weird about the SNES Classic, well, other than the fact that the cords are way too short and I have to sit on the floor, I ordered me a longer HDMI cable so I can once that gets in, maybe I can like pull the console out further. But so short. It's unnecessarily short. But anyways,
They didn't plan for that because, I mean, if you think about the average living room, no one is sitting right up against their TV. They're going to be quite a bit out, on
yeah.
their couch.
And the NES Classic was half the length. It was 3 feet the cords, and this is 6 feet cords, which is still too short. And I mean, like you can kind of tell behind me, I don't have like a huge apartment or anything, so even my small apartment, it's hard for me to like I have to sit on the floor. It's not fun. Especially with the fact that I had back surgery recently and I probably shouldn't be sitting on the floor for prolonged periods. So but anyways, like one thing that's weird about it is that like the reset button on the SNES Classic, what would be the reset button on the actual SNES is like you flip it to go into like the SNES Classic menu.
Mm.
So when you boot it up, it goes into like the menu where you select your game, and then you select your game, and then you go into it, and it basically starts emulating the game. And if you want to like go into the menu, like I was trying to figure out like what do I do? Do I press like L and R and start and select all at the same time or something? I was trying to figure out like how to get into the menu,
Yeah.
and then I was like, oh, I'll give this reset button a try, see what this does. And I clicked it, and it would go into the menu, and you can like save your state. You can have like up to 4 save states per game, and you can watch a replay of what you just did, like I think like 30 seconds ago or something like that.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I think that's basically it. Like you can watch a replay, you save your state, load state, or play a different game. And yeah, I mean that's kind of weird that they chose to do that, but I mean they wanted to keep the controller authentic. Like they're not gonna like add an extra button in the middle just to be like this is the home button,
Yeah.
which that's basically what the reset button on the console is. Um, it's working as if it's a home button on a modern day console. Um, but yeah, it's a SNES classic. Great games on there. Too bad I can't play it for too long because I can't sit on the floor for a long time playing games. Maybe I'll just like bring a chair closer to the TV or something.
I was gonna say you can either bring a chair to the TV or you can hook up the SNES to your monitor on your computer table if it has an HDMI input.
Yeah, it does. I could probably do that, but like why do I want to play SNES on my desk when I could just I mean if I was gonna just do that, I would have like just downloaded an emulator.
Yeah.
Like it kind of defeats the whole purpose of getting the console to begin with. Um I got my SNES Classic autographed.
Ooh.
Well, not the console itself, but the box. I got it autographed by a person at work who used to work at Argonaut, which
Mm.
is the studio, the UK studio that was working on StarCraft 2.
Very nice.
So, I mean, like that makes it uh a bit more special, the fact that the guy worked at Argonaut. I think he worked during StarCraft 2 at
Mm.
Argonaut. Though he's like I was just a debugger. I'm like you breathe the same air, so it's good enough.
Your F
You
game.
got to touch the game. He's trying to make it sound as if he did nothing, but I'm like, yo, you were in the studio, you worked on the game, your name's probably in the credits, right? Maybe. So there we go. I mean, I'm not gonna like sell it for like additional value or whatever. It's more like oh, this is sentimental value. I got signed by someone who worked on StarCraft 2, which is like the pretty much the flagship game of the SNES Classic. Like it's on the cover of the box. It's like this includes StarCraft 2. It's not Star Fox 2. Was I saying StarCraft this whole time?
Yeah, you were actually, but I knew you were talking about.
Okay, Star Fox. Yes, my bad. I am saying words that shouldn't be said. Anyways, Star Fox 2. Yes, there you go. Which is the flagship title of the game. I mean the console. Also, like you can't just straight up go in there and play it. You have to beat the first level of Star Fox to unlock Star Fox 2.
Huh. Interesting.
Like the icon for Star Fox 2 is like a gift that's like wrapped up. And it's like, and if you click on it, it's like beat the first level of Star Fox to unlock this. So it sounds like they could have like gone in and like added achievements to the thing too, but that would have been kind of pointless if they did because the fact that the Saints Classic is offline. So, but I mean, it sounds like they could have like done something like achievements in there if they're gonna be like, oh, beat the first level to unlock this. But yeah, I mean, let's actually go into the news and talk about the big trailer that dropped.
Yeah.
So let hold on. Let me see if I can screen share without everything going wrong. Let me know if you can't hear me any longer while I'm screen sharing. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
I'm guessing you cannot hear me though.
Oh, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So everything's working.
Perfect.
All right. Great. Um, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah. I'm really excited for this game.
Yeah. Like it's Wild West.
Yeah, I really loved the first game a lot, and I never actually played the previous Red Dead games though. But I think Red Dead Redemption was really well done, and I still to this day believe it's Rockstar's best game ever. Until I mean, we'll see how this one is, but so far, out of all the games that they have released, I think Red Dead Redemption is their best game.
Some people might argue that Red Dead Redemption is one of the best games of last generation,
Yeah.
which I still haven't played through.
Oh man.
I think I have it, but I just don't want to like boot up my PS3, which at this point feels so slow going through the PS3 menu.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, from watching the trailer, it looked pretty cool. The maze is not for you. Wait, is that's a reference for something completely different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're getting different Western worlds mixed up.
But yeah, spring 2018. So I'd say that's what like the next within the next 6 months, I suppose it's coming out. Because spring is like March, right?
So it's yeah, roughly 6, 7 months away.
Yeah. So it'll probably drop like March or April, I suppose, because that's spring.
Yeah, and I think I don't. They potentially. I think they already announced that it's coming out for consoles first, and then PC later. But I
And
don't.
then PC a year later after
Honestly,
after the console beta testers.
we need at least one solid year of good beta testing before the final release.
You see, like when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, and then they're like, "Oh, PC will come out like a year later." I know you eventually got it, right? But I didn't because by then, like uh, I just lost interest.
Oh, I still recommend getting it. It's a good game. I think so. If Red Dead Redemption is Rockstar's best game, I think GTA 5 is the best GTA game. I know a lot of people will say that San Andreas is, but I really do like Grand Theft
That's
Auto.
because you can get fat in that game, or you can get buff.
Yeah, there are some things about San Andreas that I wish they kept, like the ability to actually uh, like change how your character looks by either eating a lot or working out. Like that stuff, it doesn't exist really much anymore.
You get jetpack.
Jetpack, yeah. I mean, you can mod all that in at least on the PC version, but yeah, it should be a base game features because those are some of the iconic things that they haven't really brought back at all. Um, but I do think Grand Theft Auto 5 is amazing. You should definitely play it.
Um, let's move on to the next
Sure.
article. Speaking of Grand Theft Autos and all that and other Rockstar games, um, looks like some older Rockstar games will be ported over to PlayStation 4, including Max Payne 2, Midnight Club 3, GTA Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories. So on the latter two games, Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories, they originally came out on the PSP,
Yep.
and they I think they eventually got ported over to PS2, but that was like very late in the PS2 life cycle. Um, I think by then, like PS3 was already like has already taken the steering wheel over.
Did they actually come out for PS2? I thought they came out for PS3.
Oh, I don't know. GTA Liberty City Stories. Let's check this out.
Because I did
Um,
Liberty City Stories on a PSP when I had one back in the day. Oh yeah, it looks like it is PlayStation 2.
yeah, it came out PSP, PlayStation 2, and mobile devices.
Okay.
So, I mean, a lot of people did not play the Liberty City or Vice City stories due to them being they're released on platforms that people don't usually play
Yeah.
GTA games on, such as mobile. No one played a PSP, and came out late in the PS2 life cycle. So that would expose people to GTA's that they haven't played before. And did you? I think you've mentioned Midnight Club 3 before.
That
That
was
that that
uh,
that you like playing it.
yep, it's a really fun street racing game with a lot of car customization, and it's like an open world design. So you kind of drive around the city to find races. It was like really revolutionary, I think, back in the day in regards to just like the open world aspect of it. But yeah, it was one of my favorite racing games back in the day.
And Max Payne 2, people argue this is the best Max Payne game. And I mean, like story wise, I think it's a much better story than Max Payne 3. I think like game mechanics, Max Payne 3 was the best, but the story of Max Payne 2 was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I remember playing through Max Payne 1, and I thought it was awesome. And then when I played through Max Payne 2, I thought it was leaps and bounds better than Max Payne 1.
That's nice. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe eventually they'll add more games to that list of stuff they'll port over to the PS4, such as Red Dead Redemption 1.
Yeah.
Speaking of games coming out, The Mummy Demastered. So this I saw this on the list of um I saw it on the gaming news on Reddit, and I thought this was a joke, and I clicked on it, and this is definitely not a joke. It's made by WayForward, who are known for making 2D platformers such as the Shantae series. Um, they did like the DuckTales game, the remastered one. Um, they made all sorts of 2D platformers. Double Dragon Neo, not quite a platform, but a side scroller. And The Mummy Demastered, which looks like a mix between Contra and Castlevania. Contravania.
Contraband.
Yep. This actually looks really cool. It has a 16-bit style to it. It's definitely based off of the latest Mummy movie, which got terrible reviews, the one with Tom Cruise. Um, and I like the top comment right here by Larry Bundy Jr., who has an excellent gaming channel. You should check out his stuff. But his comment is, "Thank God Tom Cruise has no interest in video games to ruin this." Apparently, Tom Cruise like threatened to sue uh um for including his likeness in the SNES. Sorry, not that the N64 version of the Mission Impossible game.
Mm.
So like he has no interest in being in video games, and like this game, definitely doesn't have him in it. It has like some like I guess SWAT team type dude or some sort of military ish guy soldier, and they have like the Howie scream. Let me see if I could get like a where is it? I think it's right around here.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how if you heard that very well come from my end.
Yeah, it was a little quiet, but I could hear it.
They just I mean, Way Forward is taking this game seriously by including the Howie scream in there. But yeah, I want to check this game out once it comes out. It looks like it's gonna be pretty fun, and Way Forward. For the most part, they're more hit than miss as far as their games go.
That's good.
So this looks pretty cool. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for a game based off of The Mummy. All right. And what was it? It's supposed to be coming out like on PS4, Steam, Switch, and Xbone. So, yeah. Let's move on.
Sure.
Let's talk about Nintendo Creators Program. So Nintendo's Creator Program, for those who are unaware, Nintendo's Creator Program is like a an affiliation program where YouTube content creators, they apply and sign up for this, and you have like certain regulations that they have to follow, but they are allowed to um, monetize their gameplay videos of Nintendo games. And like all of them got an email recently saying there's an announcement email saying that members of the Nintendo Creators Program are not allowed to stream onto YouTube gameplay of their games.
Does
So
that also include Twitch streaming, or are they just not allowed to do?
it says YouTube.
Okay.
I mean, like the whole thing is a YouTube specific program.
Okay, so
But
they would not have initially even be allowed to do Twitch anyway, I'm assuming.
yeah, I don't think so. But they're saying that they're now not allowed to stream on YouTube. And the thing that makes it even more confusing is that um, they so here it is. So to add to the confusion, Nintendo points out that Nintendo creators are free to create a second account to live stream its games or otherwise remove themselves from creators program and register their videos for manual review.
That's really strange.
Yeah. So basically, like if they're part of the program, they can't stream games, but if they make like a second account, like a second YouTube channel, or if they just remove themselves from the creators program, then they can live stream the games, but like they can't really monetize because the monetization will be like up for review, and like then it's up to whether it gets passed or denied. It's just very confusing as to why Nintendo is even doing this.
Uh,
Um,
it's really strange because Nintendo is really the only one who has these levels of restrictions on just any kind of let's play videos or just monetizing gameplay videos.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, it kind of makes sense because they're probably trying to avoid uh, some issues that have happened in the streaming community over the past couple of years, I guess, where there's, especially like in the case recently with PewDiePie, where uh, he's been like done some things that have made his partners upset, and so like YouTube took him
Well, I
off.
mean, like, I don't think that would be the issue because the fact that, I mean, if it's up to the person's language, then that should also apply to their non-live
Right.
um,
Yeah.
videos as well. So my assumption is that it's probably because they want the videos to be in a contained environment in which the presentation is um, it's contained. The presentation of it um, is as best they're presenting the game as best as possible rather than like, oh, anything can happen, like a glitch can pop up and make the game look goofy, which I don't feel like that's ever made I feel like that's never tarnished the reputation of any game.
Yeah.
I mean, like we were talking about Red Dead Redemption a few minutes ago. Talk about, like, I even mentioned that some people argue that was one of the best games of last generation, and I recall seeing lots of YouTube videos, like not even just live stream, but YouTube videos where there's tons of glitches where, like, a woman walks up and she has like a horse's mouth, and then like the player just jumps onto her back and then starts riding her like a horse. That is a thing that happened. That's a glitch. I mean, or if we want to talk about more recent games, like look at Destiny 2. Like, if the Hawthorne Hawk uh like just shaking, like that became a meme since the release of the game. It's definitely not hurt the game. I feel like people who have like complaints about the game have nothing to do with like that hawk shaking. Are you familiar with what glitch I'm talking about or referring to?
I haven't seen that one.
So there's a lady that's at the village, and she has like a hawk next to her. It's like, I think it's like on her shoulder, or it's like right behind her, or something like that. And the hawk is just shaking like back and forth, just spazzing out, like and people have made memes about it.
Huh.
So like the glitches, especially small goofy ones, like they never kill off like the integrity of a game. If the game is genuinely bad, then that will kill the integrity of a game. But uh just small glitches here and there that would like happen during live streaming, like that's not gonna hurt your game.
Yeah.
The only thing hurting your game is your own reputation. The only thing hurting your reputation is you stopping people from doing stuff like live streaming.
Yeah, I think part of it is probably mostly just on not so much the like, showcasing glitches in the game, but just the affiliation with the person. I feel like that's the major reason, because like if it's recorded, those can be reviewed and like taken down. But if it's live, then anything can happen, and then Nintendo doesn't really have control over that. But I don't know. Maybe that's just that's my assumption, at least, is that it's so to do with the behavior of the person being affiliated, and then being affiliated with the game and Nintendo's name.
I mean, we could only assume. I mean, they haven't been clear as to why they're even doing this. It's just very confusing and questionable.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nintendo, the Wii Shop channel is closing down. So Nintendo, as they've been trying to experiment and figure out how to do this whole online thing the past like decade or so, they have announced that the Wii Shop channel will be shutting down January 31st, 2019, and users will no longer be able to add Wii points to the account starting from March 26, 2018. So you will still be able to like download the stuff that you've purchased, but you will not be able to like purchase new things. Like the store will not be available for you to like browse and shop after that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Nintendo really is falling behind in how they handle digital content. Um, I mean, like having a time limit to transfer things over. I feel like if you're able to transfer them anyway to the Wii U, you shouldn't have to do that manually. That should all be server side authentication because you've already purchased those games. It should know that your account owns those games, so you should be able to get them whenever. You shouldn't have to do anything about that. Like
Mm-hmm.
as transferring them to the Wii U. If you own them, you should be able to just download them to your Wii U whenever. You shouldn't have to be doing anything within a certain time limit. And I think that's just a testament to how far behind Nintendo is on their online and digital content.
I'm probably going to make this sound easier than it actually is. It's probably a lot more difficult and more complex. But why don't they just combine the Wii shop with like whatever current digital shop that they have for the Switch?
Yeah. And
Like,
even with the
I know they have like multiple online shops. Like they have the Virtual Console shop, and they have the Wii shop, and they have like the DS shop, and they have like the 3DS shop. Like they have like all these different shops. Like why not just like combine them together, make
yeah.
one Nintendo digital shop?
See, like the thing is if they had planned from the beginning to make them function across one store, then it would have been significantly easier to get all of this to work. But the problem is that they never planned for that in the first place. And so they make each store a separate thing and it's tied to the system's OS. So, like, when you're on the Wii U, you can only access the store that's designed for Wii U games. But if you look at like what Sony has done with their online with their PlayStation Store, you can it's one store that has the ability to show all games from the PS3 to PS4 to the PS Vita, and they
Yeah.
all share the same store. And you just create one account, and all you're really doing is when you're on a PlayStation 4, it just recognizes that on the OS and then presents you with the PS4 games first, but you still have the ability to access the Vita games and the PS3 games. And then, other likewise, and if you're on a Vita, you're presented with the Vita games first, but you still have the ability to purchase and see the games for other consoles that are on the store. But that's because they've planned ahead for that and made it all one store. But Nintendo has made this separate these that are not integrated at all. So at this point, it would be very difficult for them to get them all together. It would not, well, difficult. It would be tedious, I should say. It's not really that difficult from like a store, like from a web store setup standpoint, but it's a very tedious process because they'd have to essentially redevelop the store and put it all onto one put all the games into one area. So it's a very time consuming and tedious process. So if they were to do it, it would take a while.
Yeah, something that they're not interested in doing.
And they're not going
Because
to,
it benefits the consumer, but doesn't really benefit them.
yeah, because it would just take up their time and resources to make it easier for consumers to have the ability to just, one account, one store, and you just buy whatever you want from that one store. But they never planned to do any of this, and it still shows, like, you know, with the Switch, where you can it, the you have an account essentially for the store, but it doesn't authenticate your game purchase, I guess. And so if you were to play a game on the Switch and your Switch either got broken or you lost it or something, but you still, I guess not broken or not lost, but if it broke or something happened to it, you can't just take the SD card out, transfer the saves over to a new Switch and continue playing. You have to play the game from the beginning again because you can't transfer saves. And that's just another indication of really bad digital design, digital, like how they handle digital content. They just don't know how to do it properly.
Yeah.
And you can't just transfer saves to a new Switch because it's tied to to your Switch's physical hardware. And I don't know if they will ever change that, but it's something that just shows Nintendo doesn't have. They're just not up to date when it comes to online and digital content. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Speaking of digital stores, I know on the notes, Kevin, this is not the next one, but I'm going to jump since this is more like an easier transition. Speaking of digital stores, let's talk about Valve and the Steam store. And they removed about like 173 games. Oh no! What did they do with my games? No, they didn't do anything with your games. These are like well, let's start talking about it. So these 173 games that have got removed are like these sock puppet, like asset flipping games.
Yeah.
So, looks like the majority of them are or at least published by a group called Silicon Echo Studios. Like they have like multiple names that they go by, but they're all under Silicon Echo Studios. That seems to be like the biggest one. And basically, like the majority of these games are like templates that they will purchase off of the Unity asset store and make little to no changes to the template and release it as a game on Steam.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that it's been happening a lot over the past couple of years.
Yeah, like I mean, like, you know, you could go to the Unity store if you're an aspiring developer, you're trying to learn how to use Unity. You could go to the Unity store and, you know, like for $10 you buy this template to make, you know, like an Angry Birds like a game, you know, and but it has like zombies instead of birds. And they basically bought that template and made a few changes, basically kept the template exactly the same, just made a few changes, like changed the name of it. And then they put it onto the Steam store. Like some of these games went through the green light process, and then the majority of them have gone through the new process that they have now. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, they get it through there, and they're easily able to uh, um, achieve the minimum requirements for having the game on the Steam store, which is like, you know, you have to like pay $100 to get it through green light, and your game has, or you have to, the publisher needs to have made like at least $1,000 in revenue from the games, which is very easy for them to do, considering that you know that there are hundreds of thousands of people that use Steam, and if you are able to get like you know, like not even 1% of them to buy the game, then you get that $1,000.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they are able to get people to buy the game because they have Steam trading cards. It's a cheap game for them to like get Steam trading cards. So they have ways of getting people to buy these really bad games. I'm basically just asset flips.
Hmm.
And um yeah, so like Valve, what this was brought to their attention, and they removed like 173 of these games by this one publisher. And um one funny thing about this publisher is that they have like a Kickstarter going on for a game called like the Herbologist or something like that. Um, Not sure if it's another asset flip game or if it's like a game that they're actually wanting to work on with the money that they've made from the asset flips. But regardless, on this Kickstarter, in which they've not been putting any updates at all on the Kickstarter video, you see one of the guys that works there, and they're trying to make it look professional, where he's like at his desk and has like there's like a monitor behind him. um, on the monitor that's behind them, whether it's intentional or not, they have the Unity asset store on the monitor, which is very ironic considering that they've been just profiting off of the Unity asset store by purchasing the assets and making slight changes and then releasing it as their own game.
Yeah.
So, obviously, Valve needs to do more to prevent these type of games from appearing on their store. It's basically diluting the quality of games that they have on the store. It makes it more difficult for people to find smaller, indie games that are actually good because of the fact that it's being flooded by all these um, asset flips, and due to the algorithms that they use to bring these games to the front page, a lot of people don't see any of these indie games at all on the front page. So it creates a system in which like the rich get richer and the poor stay poor.
Yeah.
Like the popular games keep getting more uh they get more focus on, and the small indie games don't get any focus at all due to like these asset flips flooding the place.
Yeah, I'm glad Valve is taking steps to kind of clean up the store. I know people have been pretty much begging Valve to do that for a long time,
Yeah.
um, and it's good that they're finally taking this step. And hopefully, it's something that they put more effort and attention towards, and do a more, I guess. Well, I know it's hard to do, but they definitely have the resources to do this. But they need to have a more rigorous approval process for the types of games that go onto the store. Um,
Like
and
the thing is with Valve is a lot of times that they don't even make changes to the store unless it like benefits them or unless they're forced to. Like for
yeah.
example, um the return policy, they did not do that until Australia was decided that they're like, gonna was it either suing them or they're fining them, because there's no real way of returning
Hmm.
your purchases. So it wasn't until that incident where Australia took them to court that's when they finally implemented a return policy. So a lot of times Valve doesn't really do anything unless it benefits them, and I mean for a good while, like they're being benefited off of these sock puppet games because the fact that they make like 30% of um the income or something like that. So even though their store is being flooded by these asset flips, they're like, we're making money off it. It's fine. So I it's good that they are finally like doing something about it, but they need to like take preventative measures to make sure that it doesn't continue to happen. Also, like there needs to be uh, something done on Unity's part as well, in which it's not so easy for people to use these templates with little changes and then like release it as their own game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, not really.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the Atari box. The Atari box gets a release window, price range, and more details. So, the Atari 2600 Inspired Machine confirmed the following specs. It will be powered by a custom AMD processor with Radeon graphics technology. It will run Linux, sporting customized, easy to use interface. It will be a full PC experience, so you can also get it to stream content and listen to music or whatever else you might do on a PC. Web browsing,
Yeah,
maybe. I'm
potentially.
assuming. Um, yeah, it'll come preloaded with tons of classic Atari retro games, along with current titles from a range of studios. So it'll have like not only retro games, but original indie games, which I want to assume has Atari, at least the Atari style as far as graphics, because if it's like aesthetically completely different, then that'd be really weird to have those games on there. But if they look like like Nidhogg, well, I guess even Nidhogg looks too good to be Atari. But like you get what I mean though, like that type of like very plain pixelated, not even 8-bit graphics, one
Yeah.
bit. So the Atari box will be priced in the range of 2,500 to 300, and it'll ship in late spring 2018. So confirmed, it's already set to fail.
Yeah, I don't know. The price range is a little too high for this, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it
Definitely.
sounds like it can do a lot more than like an SNES Classic, but at the same time, is that what people want? Do people want to spend that much money on this machine? You can buy like an Xbox One for that price.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, like a lot of people, there are people that have nostalgia for Atari games, but let's be real, those games don't hold up anywhere near as well as an SNES games.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, like the reason why I didn't want like an NES classic was because those games don't hold up as well as SNES games. Like there's like a huge jump in game design between those generations. The NES had like a big jump in game design compared to like the Atari and Odyssey and the what like all those other um you know all those consoles, the home PC or whatever. And then the SNES had like as far as game design, huge jump.
Yeah.
Um, just a lot more depth to the games. And yeah, I mean, it also has like a much better price range, $80, compared to this 250 to 300. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to do very well. Um, but only time will tell.
Um, nah, I don't think only time Safa will tell. The answer is no. And also they're launching a crowdfunding campaign, so to help make it. So hold on, crowdfund. Atari's launching a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo this fall. Though there's no word as of yet regarding its funding goal. However, Atari said it's going with crowdfunding because it wants users to be part of this launch and part of the story. Yep, that is the perfect reason to do crowdfunding because you want people to be part of it.
Hmm.
Slash sarcasm.
Yep.
Let's move on. Let's talk about SAG AFTRA. I don't even know what like the acronym stands for, but they are the voice acting, or they're an actors guild, in which a lot of voice actors for the video games are a part of. And last year they began a strike, and the strike is coming to a close almost a year later. uh, they are coming to terms with 11 video game companies, including Activision, EA, Warner Brothers. Um, Probably Ubisoft is probably on that list as well, I assume. And So the terms include a new bonus structure that provides an addition payment to performers. Uh, this payment, which must be delivered no later than a game's release date, is calculated by the number of recording sessions an actor worked on a title. It starts with $75 payment for the first session and runs up to 2,100 after 10 sessions. Um, this seems more like these terms seem um what's the word I'm looking for? It's better than the terms like they were asking for last year. Like I remember like they're saying something about like number of uh um like according to, like number of units sold for the game. And um oh, hold on. It looks like this the union also saw a back end payment program that sought to give performers an additional full scale payment for every 500,000 units sold, for a maximum of 4 secondary payments if a game sells 2 million copies. But that isn't happening, it seems. Yeah, like that's something that they were asking for, because they're basically saying that um similar to, like, Tom Cruise in the movies, like he's a selling factor for a movie, like his name. And they're like, our actors are also a selling factor, which I don't agree with. I do not feel like, while they are a big part of the game, I do not feel like that they are a selling drive for a game.
Yeah, it's you don't see the voice actor names on marketing for games like you do see actors' names for marketing on movies. Um, and I think that kind of comes down to games can have a wide variety of. I mean, you can have games where there's no voice acting at all. You can have games where there's no dialogue at all, or even any story at all. Uh, and but movies are kind of set in the fact that you need to have someone on the on screen in
Plus, you
order to.
see their face.
Uh,
I mean, like there are. the animated movies as well, but a lot of times they put those actors in the marketing. Like they'll have like these interviews and such. They'll have them on these late night shows. They'll get their face out there. But when it comes to like Nolan North, for a good while last generation, he was in a ton of games. I'm like he was like in whatever, like Dark Void. But Dark Void wasn't like a huge hit because of Nolan North being in it. I mean that game got average reviews, and so it didn't sell well. The game itself was not very good. So it's like a huge. There's like such a big difference between games and movies. There's so much more that it comes down to other than of an actor that will drive the sales of a movie compared to a voice actor that will not quite. I mean, a voice actor will make a game better, but they will not make or break a game
Yeah.
as it would for a movie. I mean, like you can have a great game with bad voice acting. You can have a bad game with great voice acting. Uh, unlike movies where it basically comes down to the actors and the director. Like it comes down to the director's ability to, um, move the actors towards that direction and the actors to pull off the character.
Yeah.
Um, it's there's a huge difference. So I mean, the fact that they're like trying to get like, this whole like, oh, if the game sells really well, then we need our actors to make more money. It's like, well, you're taking away from the actual studio that worked on the game. They put more towards the game than the actors do. But yeah, so it looks like this is coming towards an end, and we're gonna see Nolan North in video games again because I'm pretty sure he's part of this guild.
Oh yeah, I'm fairly certain.
And oh man, why am I brain farting on her name? The uh lady who did female shepherd, and like basically nine like half of the females that are in games are voiced by her.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I also can't remember her name.
Why can I not think of her name? Uh I gotta find this out. Mass Effect IMDb.
Just search femship voice actor.
Jennifer Hale.
Yeah, that's her.
Yes, like I know she's part of this group as well. So, and she does tons of voices. Like if you have a female lead in your game, uh especially like a more mature voiced female, like you probably have her in there.
Yep.
And yeah, I know her and Noel North are both part of this SAG-AFTRA, so they haven't been um been doing any voice acting lately. And but yeah, we're gonna start hearing their voices again, touching our hearts and souls. Ready to move on?
Yep.
So, Shadow of War's controversial charity DLC is going free. Publisher apologizes for confusion. So, this is very weird. But just to recap, previously, um, one of the developers for Shadow of War, Middle Earth Shadow of War, he passed away due to cancer, and the development team wanted to immortalize him by putting him into the game, like Forgy Orc Hunter or something like that. and he's a $5 DLC, and a portion of the proceeds, like $3.50, goes towards the family, and only in like 44 of the 50 states. And like once people realized, that they saw that little itty bitty tiny print on the video, um they started asking Warner Bros, "Hey, what's up with this?" And even like their Twitter was like, "Yeah, this is true. If you're living in Canada, your money doesn't go towards the family, but you can tell your friends." And Warner Brothers has now come out and said, yeah, they apologize for the confusion, and like the tweet was factually incorrect, exasperated the confusion by stated the international funds would not be going to the family, um, and that they were uh, trying our donation to sales of the DLC was not the best way to achieve our goal of offering financial support to the family and creating a lasting memorial to Michael Forgey. Um, so they said that the reason why it was limited was because of like legal issues, which that's what you were saying on the podcast we were talking about this, Kevin.
That was
Uh,
pretty much my thought, was that it was because of legal reasons.
yeah, and so they said that the DLC is now going to be free. And if you want to donate to the family, then you can like go to their You Caring page to donate there, which I'm not sure how to feel about this, because that adds like another step for people to go through to um make the donation. So adding that extra step that people have to like search for that You Caring page, or even first of all, they have to know about it. Like not everyone's going to know about it. But then once they know about it, they have to search for the You Caring page, and then they donate through there. I feel like that will result to even less money going to the family. That's how I feel. Like if it was something simple like buying the DLC, or if it was like, hey, for everybody who downloads this DLC, we'll put $1 towards the family.
Well, I mean, like, if since the DLC is going free, it should definitely be based off of number of downloads, because that's what it would have been anyway. Like,
Yeah,
number of, so they were going to give what, 250 out of
350.
the 350 out of the $5. They should just do the same thing for every download of the DLC, which I think in that case it would actually be a lot more that they're going to donate, because if it's free DLC, more people are going to download it.
Yeah.
So, just for every download of,
Yeah, that's why I said $1. Because like, before it was like they're getting $5, and they're giving a portion to that family. Now if it was, on the other hand, if it was for number of downloads, and it's like, well, we're basically cutting from the total sales of the game instead. So that's like, rather than us making $60 for this game, we're going to make 59, because $1 is going towards the family.
yeah.
So I mean, it's like a completely different situation, and it's probably not even a good solution to begin with. But regardless, I feel like this is going to result to the family getting less money, because of the fact that it's harder for that money to get to the family.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not really too sure how to feel about this. This doesn't seem like a good solution. Um, I mean, like the whole thing was like a mess to begin with, but like I just don't feel like this is a good solution. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
Nope, not really.
All right. Final article here. Volition have been hit with layoffs. Deep Silver is reportedly unhappy with sales of Agents of Mayhem. Um, so Volition, located in Champaign, Illinois, tiny town, uh, looks like they laid off over 30 people, according to Kotaku, which names the studio's general manager Dan Cermick.
Either way, I'm not sure.
Cermick. As one of the people among those affected, the studio's last major release, Agents of Mayhem, failed to make big impact critically, and according to Kotaku's three sources, parent company Deep Silver was unhappy with sales. Like I was semi excited for this game, but then the reviews came out, and like from the reviews, everything I feared about the game seemed like it was true. Um, like I remember the reviews were basically saying that the game has a lot of personality, but the game gets boring and very repetitive, which um, that's how I was feeling about the Saints Row franchise for a while. Like 3 was the peak, and then 4 it started going downhill where it just started feeling very repetitive. And looks like Agents of Mayhem fell into the same hole where they have a lot of personality and a lot of character, but not enough for the player to do. Just boring and repetitive, which I was afraid that would happen, and it looked like it came true. And looks like they got hit pretty hard, laying off over 30 people, which, I mean, some people that might sound like not a lot, but considering I don't know what Volition, I think it's like 100 some people. Like, how many people are in Volition? Not violation. Violation. What is this? Volition Studios. Glassdoor. Glassdoor will have the answer for me. Glassdoor does not have the answer for me.
Yeah.
But either way, I'd assume it's like around 100 something people. I think that sounds right. And if 30 people is quite a bit. Oh, wait. No, that's not what I was looking for. Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming it's about 100 people, and 30 people is a big chunk of that. And also this article mentions that GameSpot gave this game a 4 out of 10, which that's not a good review score.
Yeah. Well, so one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on is I'm not a fan of this tendency in the video game industry where if sales aren't going well, they just lay off a bunch of people from the company.
Yeah.
It's, I think, very bad practice, and the video game industry is already a very stressful place to work.
Yeah.
You're working long hours. There's a lot of demand from each person, and overall salaries aren't great. Work environments aren't great. I mean, there are obviously there are outliers where some places are great to work, and situations are much better. But the overall trend for the industry is very poor for the developers. And I mean, a lot of people have a passion for games, so they stick with it, but it's at their own expense. It's a detriment to their well-being. And when things like this happen, where sales of a game go bad and they just lay off a bunch of employees, I think that's very bad practice. I mean, they're punishing the employees for things that they have no control over. Um, but the thing that really needs to be modified, and it's not an issue that's been just now happening. It's been a very, very long time, where the industry needs to learn that it's not necessarily the developer's fault. You need to look at the management. You need to look at the publishing side because that's ultimately where all the decisions are made.
Yeah.
And if the publisher demands something that from a bit they hope works from a business standpoint, but may not work from a gameplay and consumer friendly standpoint, they don't care about that. And if it goes wrong, then the developers are published. The employees who have no control, no decision making power are punished for that. Um, in this case, if the game didn't do well, it's because it was of bad design. And that either means you need to bring in new leadership, new designers, management, but that does not mean firing all the developers who were just doing what you were telling them to do.
Yeah.
And I think this mentality and tendency in the video game industry needs to make a complete change, because someone like myself and like yourself who aspires to be in the video game industry, we hear about all these problems all the time, but it's our passion for video games that keeps us going and continuing pursuing these careers, even though we know it's a very toxic place to be in. And I think the leadership in the video game industry needs to realize that it's not just about business. I mean, yes, you are a business. Your whole purpose is to make money as a business, but when it comes to the game design aspect, the games, your purpose is to make things that people enjoy. Because if you make something good, then the people will pay for it, and you will make money inherently out of that. So I really hate this tendency in the game industry where the decisions for uh, it's always the money over whether it's a good design choice, and that needs to change. And the developers need to not be punished for the decisions of the management, and because they don't have control. Like if they try to do something, if they most likely if they try to argue that situation, they're probably just going to get fired. Um, because it's not in the wish, like whatever they want to happen may not be in line with what the leadership wants. Um, and if they try to do something opposite of that, then just like in any other job, if you don't do what you're told, you get fired.
Yeah.
And the it's very hard to to get that across to the management in the game industry. And I think that in most cases, the management and leadership in the industry is not in line with what is good from a game design standpoint. They're only in line with understanding what makes the most amount of money. And the thing is that they don't necessarily know that what works in other industries doesn't necessarily work in video games. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not a blanket rule that whatever makes money here will definitely work there. It's each situation is different because games are a very different type of industry. And again, I'm not saying that this is all the case all the time. I mean, maybe they just didn't like. There are probably situations where if they didn't make money on this game, they just couldn't support the salaries for these people, and that's always a possibility. But I think more often than not, the developers are being punished for decisions that they have no control over.
Yeah. And like, they games get compared to movies all the time, when they're not even remotely the same as far as like the development goes, because you don't have like the same type of um you don't have like the same type of problems in which that you'd come across while developing games compared to problems you'd have while filming a movie. You Problems that can come up while filming a movie would include the actors getting injured or sick, like the set getting messed up, weather, things like that. Those are the type of problems you have in the movies, but like you don't have like, oh, this gameplay mechanic just simply doesn't work. You don't have like that kind of issue with a movie. You don't have like QA testers watching movies over and over to make sure that a sequence works correctly. You know, that the scoreboard shows correctly, that you know the AI does the correct things. Like you don't have those issues in movies. So um when you have a publisher wanting to crank out a game at a specific time, it's very difficult. It leads to uh, crunch, and crunch is not. It hurts people mentally, emotionally. Like it's not something that is meant for a regular worker. Like
Right. Yeah.
so, you know, when you have like these publishers trying to like crank out these games at a specific release date, it's they're not looking at it um the same way as well they're looking at it the same way as they're looking at a movie needing to come out by a specific date, which is incorrect. And unfortunately that comes down to like these executives making decisions who are above the studio themselves. So it's not like a an issue with like the studio, but more of an issue with like the executives. Um, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I just feel like that um, if the publishers weren't so focused on having a specific release date and letting the game come out when it comes out, it would be healthier on the workers. I mean, you do have certain studios that work that way, like Blizzard. You know, they release whenever they're done. Naughty Dog, I believe Naughty Dog. I think they still have crunch, but at least they don't have um, they're not pushed towards like, oh, we have to have this come out every year.
Yeah.
You know, they're not making an Assassin's Creed. They're not pushing it out every single year. But I think they still have crunch. So there are some bigger studios that work that way, and you know, like some of them are even more laxed, like Valve. They just don't release the game at all. But
Time.
that's definitely an issue with the game industry that some organizations like the IGDA, the International Game Developers Association, they've been trying to push towards having having publishers not do crunch, not push the studio towards uh releasing games so quickly.
Yeah, and honestly, like again, I would just want to emphasize that it's not going to be the same situation all the time. Each company and each group of people will work differently, but I
Yeah.
strongly dislike that publishers have control over the decisions that go into the game itself. I mean,
Mhm.
these publishers aren't the ones making the game; they're just the ones that are enabling it to happen. And it's really unfortunate that if the game developer doesn't do what the publisher says, then the publisher just won't give them money. Um, and so it's unfortunate that the publishers have that kind of control over developers. And I definitely agree with what the IGDA is doing and having. I really want publishers to have less control over what uh, goes into making a game, because let the developers do their jobs. Let them design and develop a game that works well, and uh, there just needs to be, I think, in the executive positions, there needs to be more understanding of the game development process, and there needs to be education on game design. I think that's probably from from just how corporations work, this might not, this wouldn't fly probably, but requiring executives to have a basic understanding of game design, going through some game design courses. I think it's important to understand the process that you're controlling, especially if you're in that position. Like, you shouldn't have no understanding of what goes into making the thing that you're making executive decisions about. But that kind of goes against certain aspects of business, and some people will just have executive positions because they've been successful in business before with other companies in different industries. And like I was mentioning earlier, not every industry functions the same way. You can't make the same decisions and expect the same outcome.
Yeah, we need less executives like Don Matrick and more executives like Phil Spencer.
Yes, people who are who understand the game industry. They have an insight into what makes a good game. They have some vested interest in the games themselves, instead of just the business. And that's something that really needs to be pushed and really needs to change before any of this gets better, I think. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like one issue with like executives, the ones making these big decisions, is that like you have, if you have people that are like way too much into the business side, they try to annualize games. They try to they don't care about like the quality of the game as much, or at least they still expect a great game, but like how do you expect a great game to come out like every year? It doesn't make any sense. But they you get someone like Don Matrick, someone who is like just trying to sell and make money. But then if you have someone like on the complete opposite side, who's someone who is like uh someone who loves games but doesn't really make good business decisions. You have someone like Nintendo with Iwata. Like Iwata loved games. In fact, he was a programmer.
Yeah.
He like had games in his blood, but he made tons of really bad business decisions, like just very questionable stuff. So I mean, like, you're not gonna like. I mean, like, I feel like Phil Spencer is like a good balance where
Yeah.
he's like making good business decisions as well as he really loves games. But you're not you're not gonna have every executive like him. A lot of times you'll have them one way or the other, and the majority of the time it's gonna be more of the business side rather than the gaming side.
Yeah, and it's kind of just reflecting on the idea of, it's going to be more so on the business side because that's the position, and it's
Yeah.
going to be based off of job title and not necessarily based off of your abilities in regards to the games that you're making, or that you're making the decisions for. But
Yeah. All
yeah.
right, I'm gonna stop the screen share, and if my thing messes up, let me know. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're still good.
Okay. All right. So let's start wrapping things up. Uh, that was all the news that we had for this week. Um, we have no feedback for this week. So if you want to write into the podcast, you could write in podcast@outofcontinues.com, and we'll read your questions, comments, concerns. Tell me how my opinion is wrong, and then I'll tell you that you're wrong. No, I'm not gonna say that unless you actually are wrong. Then I'll tell you you're wrong. But yeah, just send us your emails, podcast@outofcontinues.com. Guess what? There's like a really interesting fact about sending emails to us. You want to know what it is, Kevin?
I would love to know what that interesting fact.
Like sending us emails is completely free.
What?
Yeah. Like you
That
just go into your email app or your web browser, and if you type in podcastadvocates.com on the to line, and then you just write whatever you want on the subject line, and then like include something in the body, whether it's like question, comment, or anything. That's free.
huh.
Yeah,
We are living in the future.
we are. All right. Technically, we're living the present, but I'm not gonna argue with you. All right, let's wrap things up. If you enjoy what you've been hearing, you can support us by liking us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter, leave an iTunes review. You can subscribe to the Google Play Music. You can contact by email at podcast@advocates.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/advocates. All those things I just said, they're found on the website. That's www.advocates.com. You can give me a tweet. I am at Sayed Staff. That's at SAYEDSTAFA. And most likely, I'll probably assume that you're just some sort of a bot trying to have me follow you. No, I'll tweet back. I'll be like, "What's up?" I'd like to thank my guest host for joining me today, Kevin.
Thank you, Staffa.
And with that said, I'm your host, Staffa. I'll see you guys next week. Episode 294. Whoa, I got a hiccup. 294. Oh, that's another hiccup. If you're watching this on YouTube, click on this to subscribe. Click there for last week's episode, and then click there for the week before that. Bye.